All right, folks, let's dive into a wild one today. We're heading back to the early 1900s, a time when humanity was inventing incredible new things: radios, cars, planes, and apparently ways to mess with people's brains. You know, all the regular Tuesday afternoon stuff. It was a time of discovery, experimentation, and, well, sometimes things got a little weird. Some people wanted to figure out how the world worked. What does this gadget do? And others? Well, they wanted to figure out how we worked, and not in a, hey, let's all be nice to each other kind of way. Nope. We're talking about experimenting on humans, real people, real pain. So let's fast forward to 1931 in Chicago, where Dr. Cornelius Rhodes, a leading pathologist, was on the scene. The United States Public Health Service had sent him to Puerto Rico to study tropical diseases, specifically anemia. Seems legit, right? Except Dr. Rhodes wasn't exactly playing by the book. Rhodes didn't care much for the people he was studying, understatement of the century, and in a letter he later wrote, he admitted that he had no problem experimenting on the local population. According to him, they were degenerates and worthless. Yikes. But it wasn't just idle talk. Reports started surfacing that Rhodes wasn't exactly treating his patients. Instead, he was reportedly letting them die or even injecting them with diseases to see how they would react. Anemia, cancer, you name it, he allegedly tried it. How could one guy with so much potential turn so dark so fast? That's the question. The thing is, Rhodes' unethical work didn't just end there. He would go on to be a prominent figure in the development of biological warfare in the United States. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Back in Puerto Rico, his shady actions caused enough uproar that there were calls for investigations. But guess what? Nothing really happened. No consequences. Why? Because Rhodes was backed by some powerful institutions. The Rockefeller Institute, one of the biggest medical research foundations at the time, shielded him. In fact, he continued his career, eventually working with the U.S. Army in developing chemical and biological weapons. Talk about skating through the system. But wait, there's more. Around the same time, across the world in Japan, we've got Unit 731. This is where the real nightmare fuel comes in. Unit 731 was a secret biological warfare research unit run by the Imperial Japanese Army during World War II. They didn't mess around. They ran full-scale human experimentation on captured Chinese civilians and prisoners of war. Yeah, this wasn't some small-scale, back-alley operation. We're talking industrialized horror here. The men and women of Unit 731 would perform live dissections, yep, live, no anesthesia, and infect their subjects with diseases like plague and anthrax to study the effects. And just to keep things fresh, they also threw in frostbite experiments and tested biological weapons on whole villages. Casual stuff, right? And just like our pal Rhodes, the scientists of Unit 731 pretty much got away with it. After the war, the United States cut a deal with Japan. Give us your data, and we'll give you a free pass. So those responsible for thousands of deaths walked away, no problem. And the data they collected, it helped advance modern biological warfare techniques. So here we are, decades later, looking back at this mess. On the one hand, yeah, some of these experiments advanced science, but on the other hand, it was at the cost of immense human suffering. How do we even begin to reconcile that? The key takeaway? Just because we can do something doesn't mean we should.